it's a good thing. Now, Sandra, I see the first edition of this Teens Guide to the Constitution of Kenya was written in 2016.
Yes.
So were you writing these while in the State House, writing speech?
No.
And how, or
2016. 2016 found me at Katiba Institute.
Oh, okay.
And that is why I said now we'd do the connecting. Because I grew up... I
love this acknowledgement to God Almighty.
Oh, yes.
My
yes.
source and sustainer.
See, I told you
oh,
that
my gosh. This is good.
The religious background, the Christian background.
No, very important. How spiritual are you? Or how religious are you?
I'm more spiritual than
Those
religious.
are two questions.
Yeah. I'm more spiritual than religious, pursuing a relationship with God.
Okay.
Yeah. Much more, I think, than going to church every Sunday. I haven't been able to do that a lot. So more spiritual.
So you believe where one or two or three are gathered?
Yes.
God is there.
God is there, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
So 2016 found me at Katiba Institute.
Yes.
And now to do that connection, you remember I finished college, and then shortly after we have the post-election violence over reasons I could not understand. Yeah. Nobody
about the violence.
About the violence. Yeah. I knew violence had taken place.
Maybe I can try to explain to you.
I know what you're saying.
I can
but I know what you're saying. But at that particular
so these are
point,
let me try to explain to you. You can add more meat to it.
Okay.
So how human beings work since day zero. I don't know when this day zero was.
Yeah.
Human were meant to be led. So if you're not being led, you're following. That's the way the world works. Think about it, by the way. That's the two way of this world. So if you're not being led, if you're not a leader, you're following in a circumstance. So people believe so much in their leader, and whatever the leader says, naturally, we're able to follow it. May it be true, may it be wrong, may it be selfish, may it be castigated by political influence, or whatever reason, it happens. And most of the wars that have been fought, either military or civilian, is because majorly of the leadership. In one or the other, they might be justified or they may just be unjustified. And I think what happened majorly in 2007, beside all these other, injustices, animosity, and whatnot, it was leader-led.
Yes.
I don't see that like justice has been done to me, and I think this will affect you all. And over time, and I love this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, over time people have realized, as much as we love our leader, we have responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities is to ensure that we ensure we are peaceful. Because when there is war, people have not seen any fruits of war. And they have not seen any advantage of them going to die for the leadership. Also, even the ones that have been fought for, to be fair, they have not looked back and said, I'm here because my people actually followed me to the letter, and they actually ensure that at least what we have right now, we can share with them. Of course, there are those who have enjoyed, but not the others who have not enjoyed fully of those fruits. So any leader who is listening, or any leader who will listen to this, they have a key responsibility, either they like it or not, to ensure that, first and foremost, ensure people are safe. Because if you say, go, they will go. If you say, guys, cool down, they will cool down. And look at all scenarios. That's what happens. At the end of the day, people are like, what is the leader saying? Right? There are those who actually even want to ask questions. I'll give you a case in point. Just concluded election. Just do your survey. Just sample people. Ask them, why did you vote this way? Some of them are like, we were voting this way. It's obvious. There are people who have no reason at all to vote, right? So we need to be very careful in our position, because each and every one of us, even you as a parent, you are a leader, your child actually observes what you say, how you do it. And if you observe, sometimes the mistake they make or things that they make that you don't like, if you research really well, they saw that either from you or from someone who is in the position of leadership. privilege.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's true.
Yes.
And those are now some of the motivations I had. Part of the motivation I had
Yes.
to come up with a guide like this, because
Awesome.
nobody had those conversations with me way back.
Yes.
Nobody talked to me about coup and talked to me in a manner that gave me facts.
True.
That was not biased.
True.
Nobody talked to me openly about the ills of the previous regimes.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Where we have very good leadership, and then we also have instances where human rights are being violated, and we have torture chambers, and we have all these ills that are happening within the country.
Yes.
I could hear what people were saying, adults speaking about it in harsh tones. But nobody sat me down as a young person and told me this is what your history is. Most of the things I learned was about the fight for independence, the colonial rule, and how we got independence, and how now...
And who got what after independence.
And who got what, and who's my president, and who was not my president. And, nobody sat me down and gave me facts. And even the stories that were presented as facts, more or less... were the divisive kind, if I could say.
To show you how different you are from others.
To show you how different you are, or how others are very different from you. And you see now for a teenager, or for that time in college, you are more or less living a sheltered life. And it is sheltered, sometimes it's not done intentionally. It is by design. Because the assumption perhaps is because you are still too young to understand. Even if you know there isn't much, then what after you have known? But then, so one, I have not been told my history about my country. I've not been given the facts, the truth about what my country is and why it is the way it is. And then because of this, much of what happens in 2007, because now that's the history and event that I can relate with. So then 2007, 2008 happens. And then you hear, the way there's been cyclic violence, post-violence, and this community has been fighting this community for a long time. They do not get along because of land, because of something that was done 20, 30 years ago. And you see, so as a young person, I'm placed in this scenario. I don't have information. This is now when I'm beginning to learn about the reality of my country. And then it begins to sink into me that perhaps my life was too sheltered. And that of my friends and the people I relate with was also very sheltered. And then now you're getting into adulthood, and you're starting to relate with your country and the people around it. And you realize these biases that you did not know existed. Because the 2007 now, you realize even the people whom you considered friends, you thought were friends. I mean, why aren't we friends anymore? Why are you writing such despicable things on social media? When did this begin? And he or she cannot explain. This is someone you went to school with. This is someone you've been to college with. We did pupillage together. But then now, because of politics, it's just, so why is this happening? So those two experiences now got me thinking. And then having been in these processes with the TGRC and then now the Kenya National Dialogue on Reconciliation, now we have a new constitution. So then now this constitution is being said that it's going to be the answer to all these things. It's going to correct all these issues that one I was not told, but then now I'm finding out by myself. It's going to be the answer to all these things. But then now I have to learn it on my own. I have to understand it more or less on my own. It's like I'm starting life afresh as a citizen. So then I felt third, beyond the gap of information about my history, then there was also a gap in how this information was being given.
Disseminated.
Because it's for adults and it is for constitutional
Actually, not
experts.
for adults, for learned people. Because if you read some of the terminologies, they even for adults, they don't make sense out of them, right?
It's for adults and for learned people and for individuals who are able to understand and already have that background of what the country is about. And then tied to this, then you realize I realize for myself that there isn't much I can do to change the past. What has happened has happened. What I can relate with, I can relate. But then being a visionary, what contribution can I make to, one, ensure that the people coming after me have the facts as they are, so that they don't have that information gap like I did.
Yes.
Where they're given half truths or no truths or nothing at all about who they are and their contribution to nation building.
Yeah.
So then how do I address that? And then given that you already have this material, how then do I package it in a manner that will help address that, to fill that gap, or how to address that issue?
Yes.
And so 2 issues there. The lack of being told about your history, the lack of appropriate information. And then now, if you're going to change that, fine, we're going to give them the information. But then we must also change our perception around young people.
Yeah.
Because I believe that perhaps the voting decisions, some of the voting decisions that young people make, they could make different decisions.
True.
If they're engaged early in time, they're given the right information and they are adequately supported.
Yeah.
And by that support is being engaged in a manner that you are seen as an ally, not just a tool.
Yes.
You are seen as someone who's capable of making better decisions for their community.
Yeah.
So that I'm given the facts and the truths of where I've come from.
Yes.
I'm given the information of where I need to head to. And then I'm adequately prepared.
Yes.
Like, we sit around this table.
Yes.
You're not going to influence what I think or what I say, but you're going to give me what I need to help me make those decisions. So it is creating platforms also where we can work with the next generations as allies in changing the narratives that our country has had.
Yes.
And that is what I hope this book will be like.
Yes.
It's going to give information for what it is.
Yes.
Tell Kenya's story for what it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
For what it is.
Yes.
And then fill the gap of the legalese that the Constitution has, so that you're simplifying it in a manner that you're able to engage with the people that need it the most. And then also now using it as a tool that young people can collaborate with the older generations and even interact amongst themselves to maximize on their potential as citizens as they continue to build it.
I mean, there are a couple of things that you have said that are very, very important. One is that the reason even we're doing this, podcast, vlog, is because I've realized that our history either was stolen, African history, stolen, deleted, or altered, completely altered. Because if you ask any, and I think you're old enough, any person who was born post-colonial, the only history they have is about colonialism, right? Nothing else. And actually, even that, they don't have vivid history that you can follow step by step. Also, if you look at the way our history is recorded, even the history we read in school, it's being recorded, haphazardly, small parts that actually fits the bill. But I'll take a sample like Ijekitile Ngwale. What do you know about them?
Beyond what I read.
No, even what you read is about porridge, telling people to go to war, and they were defeated, and that's it. But
and
you're not
they're
given
often
the background.
Ones to demean them, like.
Absolutely. Now, so it's very important that you're doing this, and I think for me, I've focused for Africa's tech ecosystem, and I think it's more or less really something to go forward, because I'm saying, well, I might not have so much influence in the past history, but maybe in the next 100 years, someone will listen to what you're talking about here, and they'll know why we made certain informed decision. And they can build on that as they go on. It can be celebrated or criticized or even actually aligned to what actually the future looks like. So it's very important that you've said that this actually castigated you to write a book, because a book will always be there, with or without you. And when I look at this book, there's something here on page 8. It says, the Constitution only gives people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself, by Benjamin Franklin. And that actually is very, very important. right? So assume constitution is happiness, but you're not aware of that knowledge. What happens? Even you have no right to pursue it.
Yes.
Because it's there, you're not aware of it. And
you're
this is
not
beautiful.
aware of it.
And I like a couple of things about this book. It's not just written like our normal 2010 constitution, right? It's written in a way that is palatable to any young person who wants to see the history, what happens. I can see Wangari Maathai saying it's the little things sisters do, that's what will make the difference. My little thing is planting trees. That goes a long way. And I see a couple of other interesting stories in between. Like if I go to page 19, I see chaos erupting in Kibera area of Nairobi after the disputed 2007 presidential elections. And you give a very nice, story, which is actually about a person that someone can relate to. So, and I see on page 15, veteran politicians, Martin Shikuku, I think this is a Saba. James Orengo in the 1990s campaigning for the introduction of multi-party democracy. I see James Orengo there.
Yeah.
Now he's a governor. Very young, very energetic. I see the Mlolongo system there, no?
Because this, for instance...
votes for 2005. No, this is not Mlolongo. You know about Mlolongo, eh?
Yes.
When people used to line up, you're told, these ones
you have to line
are
up
for this guy.
Yes.
And the other one are for the other guy. The other guy won.
Just in case you're being funny with the votes.
And
I was going to say things like the introduction of multi-party. These are things I got to learn.
Yeah.
When now I, got into that space. And I can, now that you mention it, I'm relating it to a young person who was a first-time voter in the just concluded election. They had the privilege then that maybe people like James Orengo and Martin Shikuku did not have. They had the privilege of having a booklet for the voting papers. You have the privilege of having very many parties. You have the privilege of having very many candidates vying for a position.
Yeah.
But imagine how much more significant it will have been to let a young person know, a first voter, the privilege it is to have that.
A vote.
To have a vote where you have multiple candidates and you have multiple parties. I didn't know that when I voted the first time. It was, it was just a process. So I think even that's why having the history part, when you know the significance of something or how significant and important something is, you get to value it.
You don't appreciate it that much.
You get to value it much more when you know how important it is. So that when the young people say that, for instance, I don't feel like voting. I don't see the reason why I need to vote. Put that same young person on the table with, say, James Orengo, the people who now fought for democracy during that particular time. Let them have that conversation for them to understand why it was even important for them to vote at that particular point and why it's important for a young person to vote now. Yeah.
True. And this book actually is not just a reading book. It has also spaces for activities such that, like I see on page 16 here, what comes to your mind when you read or hear the phrase, we the people. And then there is number 2 there. The preamble has 7 phrases that highlight our achievements and aspirations. How are the phrases below being implemented in your community? A, proud of our ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation. B, honoring those who heroically struggle to bring freedom and justice to our land. If I look at this book in a nutshell, it's a well-written book with in mind how do young people think. And it's more practical than any other book I've seen on Constitution. And there are a couple of things that we'll go through quickly to understand what informed this. But I see something interesting on the Bill of Rights, that's page 43. The civil and political rights. Where did you get these? These were the first civil and political rights in the first constitution that we had?
Yes.
Which year was this? When this was written?
The pre-2010 constitution. But then they are also international as well.
Yeah.
But internationally, recognized internationally.
Yeah.
But then our previous constitution did not have the economic and social rights, which are now at page 45. So that was one of the enhancements of the 2010 constitution, which was not there in independence constitution.
So this was just omitted for the African constitution or Kenyan constitution?
Yes, our constitution did not have it.
Okay. The previous constitution.
The previous constitution.
Was it written in 1800 or?
Can't remember the
date. Yeah. It must have been.
It's considered the independence constitution, which was, again, you'll read in the book, amended several times to serve particular interests.
Yeah. And some of these rights are vague because, like, I have right to education. The institutions that are responsible for that, they implemented halfway because, like, right now, I would say confidently that there's no school that you'd go without fees, public or otherwise. So there are charges hidden there, or maybe they're implemented. Of course, you don't have that much choice. So it's one way that actually people find impeding to education. So I don't know how we can even start implementing these. And you're telling interesting stories.
If I could answer that, if you have page 44. So there's the civil and political rights, and then the economic, social, and cultural rights. So what I've said, you realize your civil and political rights the moment you exist. But certain economic and social rights, such as the right to clean and safe water and the freedom from hunger, must also be realized immediately. However, in some instances, it may take some time before you can enjoy all the economic and social rights in the Constitution to an adequate standard. This is especially if the government has not established the necessary infrastructure for those services. For example, while you have the right to health services, your area might not have enough hospitals to offer those critical services. So if you can relate that with the right to education, it is a right, but it can be achieved in a gradual manner, if I can say that. Because then build hospitals, you train teachers, to ensure the schools have enough facilities. So it's gradual, and that is why you have the activists within the education space now demanding for more budgetary allocation. So that is it is incremental. If we had 10 schools, then now for the next year, let us have 30 schools. And within these 30 schools, let us have more trained teachers. So it's not something that must be realized immediate. But then systems and structures should be put in place in a gradual manner to ensure that we are meeting these rights to the required standard. And I believe as a country we've done that. We've come from a point where everyone used to pay. You needed to pay fees, and education was very expensive, and still is to a certain extent. But then now you have instances where there's free education. Those who are enjoying it, free primary education, free basic education, and free secondary education. And hopefully with time, with more government commitment, you're going to have free university education, and like as it is elsewhere.
But free is relative, to be honest. We like to tell the way it is because I also know our viewers, our listeners are on the ground and they're experiencing this. So I'll tell you for sure, I'm yet to meet free education anywhere in this country. Why so? You're not paying anything, you're going to school, showing up, going back.
But that's exactly what I mean by incremental. Incremental. We are not going to achieve education like it is somewhere, say in Morocco, where you're not paying fees at
so
all.
It's more affordable education than free.
It is heading there free basic, basic on certain aspects, and it is a step towards the right direction. So what do we do as citizens, as the beneficiaries of that service? To what extent are we supporting the government or demanding more from the government or the decision makers to ensure that we are getting to where we are? And it's the same even with health. There are certain aspects of health where you are told you have a right to emergency medical health care. That cannot be incremental because you need it immediately. But then there are things such as building more hospitals that can now be said to be incremental.
So consumer rights, what is this? What does it mean?
So put simply...
There are very interesting things here. Right to family, right to language and culture, at least I understand that. Right to education, right to social security, consumer right. What does that mean?
Consumer rights, take for instance, it's just what it is. You as a consumer of services, if you're going to put it plainly. When it happens, when we see the videos from the West, we take it very, very lightly. But then go to a restaurant, for instance, you order food.
Yes.
Is it packaged in a manner that is healthy? Is it packaged in a manner that does not threaten your...
Now that you have brought that example, there is something that has come in my mind. Like there was this allegation where the bread that weighed 500 grams now is weighing 400 and it's more expensive. So that can be actually argued as my consumer right violated.
That could be a market discussion.
Or where maybe a bread is labeled, the expiry dates are labeled wrongly. So the bread is expired, but the date shows that it's not yet expired. So you can argue, okay, I think my consumer right here are violated. So now I get it.
Yeah.
But there's something also interesting in the same, and this is does exist on 2010 Constitution. Okay. So right, freedom from hunger and right to have adequate food of acceptable quality.
Yeah.
Moment of silence. How many people sleep hungry in this country? I remember when I was growing up, I could afford, my mom could only afford 1 meal a day. And it was like, there's no other way. You just eat once. Maybe you eat at around 3:30. That serves both. Yeah, and in the morning, you take a cup of porridge, you're good. This constitution existed. And I know up to today, there are people who actually survive on 1 meal a day. How do you ensure this? Is this the responsibility of the government? Is it us as Kenyans, the way we come together and say, okay, maybe in Turkana or Lodo, people are dying of hunger. Can we come together and see what we can do as other human beings?
I'd say, and we could also bank this as homework for those who audit, because just like you're saying, it's not many people have interacted with the ECOSOC rights. Yeah, so it encompasses both. It encompasses both in a manner that even the food that's coming from our granaries, the food that's coming, anything that's even public, then it has to be of adequate adequate quality. Yeah,
but it's not accessible to everyone.
It's an incremental.
Okay. You're sounding so politically right. Yeah. Politically right.
It's to ensure that you're even able to feed yourself. You're able to feed yourself, and also goes to. There's a part of say that the rights are also interdependent. Take for instance, you've been accused. You have been taken to jail. Yeah. So the rights of persons detained or held in custody or imprisoned. One of those rights that's relatable is the right to freedom from hunger. So you cannot be starved. Die of hunger. Yeah, you cannot be starved from hunger or given. You have to be treated with dignity. Okay. Again, now that relates to the right to human dignity. So it's understanding the rights as they relate to each other, not standalone, not standalone on there.
Okay. Now, this book is very interesting. Actually, it has made me more curious than I have ever been before to go and look at this keenly, because I feel like even our rights are more violated than protected when I think about it, because sometimes it's lack of knowledge, right? And I see you have written it so well. Very good job. So you'll find there part Roman 1, its introduction. Roman 2.
Which page are you at?
I'm at Roman 3. So I just want to go through the contents, and then we can see if we can, if time allows, we can peruse a few more things in there. We don't want to preempt it for our listeners, so that at least and by the way, guys, you can buy this to maybe your alumni school, You can buy it to a few teenagers to read it, even your child, or maybe your nephews and nieces, to be able to have this access to knowledge.